Welcome back to another edition of the Friday Golf Podcast. And today I am joined by Trevor Immelman, Masters champion, CBS lead analyst, to break down the 2025 PGA Championship. What a performance from Scottie Scheffler. He kind of lifted and separated on Saturday. We'll get into the nitty gritty on Scheffler's performance. He adds his third major, his first non-Masters major championship. I think that's significant. He also has two players. Obviously is on a historic run. No wins in his first 70 starts. Since then, he has three majors, two players, and 16 total championships. So we will break down Scheffler, talk about, kind of the other big stories, Jon Rahm, Bryson DeChambeau, the other challengers, and we'll get into the nitty gritty. We'll definitely talk about Quail. I know that Trevor's a big fan of Quail. I'd say I'm lukewarm on Quail, not a hater, not a lover. We'll have probably a good discourse about that. But before we get to Trevor, today's podcast is brought to you by Club Champion. We had gusty winds on the weekend, lots of crosswinds. People talked about Scottie Scheffler and the control of the ball. I played a gusty round with a set of rentals last year at a world-class golf course. And let me tell you, the biggest thing that I noticed from my Club Champion clubs to those was I just had a lot of trouble understanding, especially the second day of it even, what the ball was going to do. The best way to get control of your golf ball is to get fit by some of Club Champion's master fitters. They have these they have studios across the country. They make it really easy to go in and get it done. If you're interested in adding distance off the tee, getting a lot better dispersion with your irons, that's what Scottie Scheffler does better than anybody in the world. Hitting more fairways, hitting more greens. Check out Club Champion and go get fit there. If you use the promo code Fried Egg, that's no space, Fried Egg, you'll get a free driver fitting or iron fitting with a club purchase. Just use the code Fried Egg at clubchampion.com/Fried Egg. All right, Trevor Immelman, fresh. Oh, that was a word vomit right there.
Hey, keep that in, PJ. Just keep that in. I mean, the guy, he begs me to come on the show after every major. You'd think the least he could do would be to pronounce my name correctly. I mean, this should be on the shotgun start, not the fried egg.
You make me get up so early here on the West Coast, and you jam me with times.
I got stuff.
It's barely even morning here.
I got stuff to do. I mean, you're cutting into my golf time right now. I'm home for 3 days.
I figured that's what you were doing today.
Yeah,
batting around times. It's like he's playing golf.
I'm home for 3 days, and I'm sitting here with you instead of being out shooting 82 somewhere.
All right. Trevor Immelman joined the show fresh off a week in Charlotte. You were calling action for CBS. It was I think across the board. I'm not saying this as someone has you on the podcast. I read multiple reports. Banner week for CBS, market improvement from 5-10 years ago, the PGA being broadcasted. Congrats on a great week at CBS and awesome coverage as always. What was, I guess, let's zig a little. Everybody wants Scottie right out of the gate. What was your favorite underrated story of the week?
Well, for me, it was Adam Scott, to be honest with you. He's a great friend of mine, and I spent a bunch of time with him leading up at the Philly Cricket Club, and then also during the practice days at the PGA. And it was really exciting there for quite a long while. At one point, he was in tie for second on the final 9 of the championship. Unfortunately, he had a rough finish like so many did in that closing stretch. But that was fun for me. I mean, the guy probably doesn't get as much attention as what he should. Being about to be 45 years old in July, he's playing his 95th consecutive major championship, which is it's kind of mind-blowing when you think of the consistency, not just from a game standpoint, but a staying healthy standpoint. And so for me, that was kind of like a little bit of an underrated story, but I'm biased because he's one of my best mates. So I was following that closely.
As someone who grew up watching players like Adam Scott, Sergio Garcia, Justin Rose, that era of player was really in my, they were the young players in my kind of high school years, my formative youth years of watching golf. And obviously they ran up against Tiger Woods, which was a rather tall task. But one of the things that I think about all the time is that I would love to see one of those players pick off like another major. Notably Adam Scott. I think like in terms of the the classy guys on tour, always available to talk to people. You've never heard anybody say a bad thing about the guy. And you look at the body of work of his career, particularly in major championships, and you would love to see him go from that one major club to a second major club. And he's been around and he's had chances. And like you think about this, I think one of the things that's fascinating about this PGA is Scottie lifted and separated on Saturday. Like that last 5 holes is what is really, it was an extraordinary, really the last 9 holes on Saturday was just an extraordinary performance. But you think about like, had that not happened there in the way he played on the front 9 of Sunday, there would have been a whole lot of players right in the mix. And Adam Scott would have been one of those players.
Yeah, for sure. He did what the best do, Scheffler. We think about the last 5 holes on Saturday. Is that one of the best stretches we've seen in major championships?
I would have to say yes. I mean, in analytically, Data Golf said effectively like he hit some number of perfect shots in succession from like an analytics standpoint.
Yeah, you just think about the shots. If we run through them real quick, the tee shot on 14, where the wind is quite hard on Saturday, hardest of the week, out of the left-hand side to that front right hole location, and he stripes the high draw in there with a fairway wood, which he can hit them all, but if you held a gun to his head, he's going to go with the fade because that's the shot that he dominates with mainly. But he goes ahead and hits the high draw in there to a few feet, makes the eagle. The way he plays 15 is just remarkable. The shot he hits into 16 with the 7-iron down the hill is dialed in, didn't convert the putt from about 10 or 12 feet. Then the shot he hits into 17, which for me is the hardest hole location at that green, is when it's in the front right. Mm-hmm. Because everybody naturally, for the most part, is bailing out right. But now you're short-sighted and you've really got nothing and you're staring a 4 in the face. He goes ahead and works one in off the left-hand side, makes that putt, and then flushes one down the middle at 18. He's in the seam of that replaced divot, squeezes one out there, and then finishes with another 10-foot. That was just remarkable stuff there to really go ahead and take the tournament by the scruff of the neck. He hadn't really had his best stuff in the first couple rounds, and he was just hanging around. When we came on air on Saturday at about 1, we did the on-camera at about 1:30, and Nance asked me about it, and I was like, well, you look at this leaderboard, and that name Scheffler, it's like it's blinking in neon lights. He may just be a few strokes behind, but that's the guy. Everybody kind of knew that if you stayed ahead of DeChambeau and Scheffler, in all likelihood, you're going to be lifting the Wanamaker. But Scheffler absolutely separated himself there. It was remarkable stuff. Exciting for us to be able to be up there watching that and commenting on those shots and those swings. It's big time, man. It's big time.
I think obviously when you point to Scottie Scheffler over the last calendar year, the big change has been the putter. It used to be like, I feel like if you were thinking about playing in a tournament against Scottie Scheffler, you're thinking, okay, like this guy's going to beat the hell out of me tee to green. around the greens. But if he gets on the greens and he has just kind of an average day, I've got a real chance to beat him. Now he's a top 25 putter in the world statistically, and I think like that just brings a whole new level if you're a competitor against him of like, okay, like what can I do? You there's this feeling of you have to play perfectly to even contend with him. And I think that's like a psychological thing that no players really put on a field since Tiger Woods. Just the idea, and and you can speak obviously more to this going up against Tiger. But like when a player is that well-rounded and excels at so many different facets of the game, how does that make competitors, just what does it feel like when you're going up against them?
Yeah, it's brutal from a mental standpoint because as a competitor, you're always looking for the cracks. You're looking for the cracks in the best players and where you think you could expose those. And also when you find cracks in a really twisted way, that's how you get more confidence because you feel like, okay, well, maybe there's a couple opportunities that I'm going to have to be able to take advantage of. But, it's so easy for us. We always compare everything to Tiger because for our generation, he's the benchmark. And at times we've got to be a little careful. I mean, you and I had this exact same conversation after the Masters when McIlroy completed the Grand Slam. And at that point, I said, and not everybody agreed with me, which is fine. But at that point, I said, when McIlroy is in full flight, like when he has everything going his way and he's feeling great about every part of his game, to me, that's the closest I've seen to Tiger in his prime. The difference with Rory is that he doesn't have the consistency throughout the bag that what Scottie does. And, you bring up a brilliant point with the putting. I mean, that was absolutely a weakness a few years ago. I'm just looking at the stats here. Putting in 2023 was 162nd on tour. He's giving up a third of a stroke per round to the rest of the players. And since he's had this partnership with Phil Kenyon, things have improved quite dramatically. I mean, last year he went to 77th, and now he's actually 15th on the season. So when you add, really 15th, in my mind, is elite putting. He's gone from losing a third of a stroke to gaining a half a stroke. And so that's almost a full stroke switch right there. And when you look at a guy that has ample speed, he gets up there to the 180 mark. He's the best iron player in the game. He's the best strategist in the game. He's the best manager of his assets and weapons. When you add a pretty solid putter to that, it's a hell of a combination. It really is.
You think about 2023, the discourse around Scottie, and you bring up, and I think like skill improvement at the PGA Tour level is one of the more fascinating and difficult things. Like so often you see people set out to improve skills and other skills diminish because of the attention they put on that skill improvement. With Scottie, if you think about the 2023 discourse, he finished close so often. It was like a shot here, a shot there, just racked up top 5 finishes that year.
Yeah.
And you just like, and I know this is like kind of obvious when you state the stats, but he was losing a third of a shot per round and 1.33 shots in a tournament on the greens. And that was the difference right there between a lot of top 5s and a lot of wins. And it's the amazing thing I think is like when you boil in his short game, which is world class, world class, like as good as it gets around the greens, and an above average to elite putter, there just aren't a lot of bogeys around. And the nature of pro golf, nature of golf in general is limiting mistakes. But, Scottie Scheffler with his iron play, he seemingly hits a couple irons around to inside 5 feet. That is just like something he does. You know, you watch a lot of Scottie Scheffler golf. I think it becomes like you become numb to how good the iron play is.
Yeah.
And if you're not making bogeys and you're getting those, it's an incredible, the floor is so low. And I agree with your point about Rory, because Rory's iron play can elevate to an elite level. His putter, I think, like when his putter's hot, he's a very good putter. He's got a great short game. But then obviously when his driver is cooking, that gives him almost like probably like a half a shot advantage on Scottie per round.
Yeah. If you look at 2023, and we just referenced there that it was 160 something in putting, which is pretty abysmal for somebody that good. He won twice. He had 2 seconds. He had 5 thirds. So overall, he had 17 top 10s in 23 starts, being one of the worst putters on tour. And then he makes the changes with Phil Kenyon. They very clearly clean up some stuff in his stroke. He goes to the mallet putter. He starts to break out the claw towards the end of the season. And then you look since then, the amount of tournaments he's won. It's fascinating to let your mind wander and imagine what he could do from here. You know, we talk about Rory. Rory's just turned 36. Scottie's 28. Could be a lot of fun for us to watch over the next 5 to 10 years.
It's a different generation, right? I think like I always have trouble determining like where generations end, but he seemingly is in a different era of player than Rory, and he appears to be the one that is going to carry the torch. I think this is what we do just naturally after major championships, is we overreact. I saw that No Laying Up had called FanDuel and got a line that they would set of 9.5 major championships as the over-under for Scottie. That seems like a lot.
That is a lot.
I was going to ask you, what do you think is the appropriate number for an over-under?
I think I would have set it more at the 6.5 range. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I mean, I have a ton of respect for Scottie as a human, as a golfer, as a competitor. I mean, the guy is, you know, in a certain sense, he lulls you to sleep with his calmness and with how he seems to not be affected by too much. But he's mean, man. He's a mean competitor. If you kind of dig down and pull back some of those layers of the gentlemanly aspect that he portrays, and you just isolate the golf and the competitor when he's out on the fairways and on the course, he's a monster. He's an absolute monster. And I love that. I love watching it. But you got to think, if you put it at 6.5, the type of players that you are thinking that he's going to surpass, you know, you're talking about Seve, you're talking about Faldo, you start to get into that, Phil, you start to get to that zone where it is just a remarkable career.
I think if you wanted to make the most bullish case on Scottie and his major total, you have to point to his approach, to the way he goes about his process, like the simplicity of what they work on. His like one teacher, you know, I think he's fairly self-sufficient. We saw it mid-round Sunday, him know what was going on, make the adjustment. Um, but then I think like the underlying other aspect, there's a great, I think it's a Jim Collins podcast he did with Tim Ferriss, maybe. That Jim Collins wrote all these business books. He's like he's one of the great business writers of the last generation. And he talked about his maniacal approach to his process. And he laid out like basically I say no to every single like ever appearance that asked me. He maniacally tracks his creative hours spent on a daily, weekly, monthly, and annual basis. And he knows that he has to set aside a certain amount of time for creative work to get the best work out of him. Like he's tracked this for years and he knows like, hey, like if I spend X amount of creative hours, I'm going to get like this much, I'm going to be able to produce great books. Like he believes like the issue with so many artists, and I think this could extend to athletes, is that you get really big and then your obligations get big also, and it distracts you and takes away from the time that you put into the process of becoming great at your pursuit. And if you think about Scottie, I think like one of the underrated aspects of him is how commercially quiet he is for being the number one player in the world.
Yeah.
He's not on a lot of commercials. He's got limited sponsors. Like the Nike deal in a way is like a blessing because it covers him, right? There's nothing else on his shirt that's taking days. Like we're going to put this logo on your shirt for $1 million, but you need to give us 5 days of your life, right? He does not he has TaylorMade really and Nike, and you don't see him on a ton of commercials. Like he is, it came out years ago that Ricky Fowler was spending 30 days on commercial shoots a year. And you think about it, that's not a sustainable approach to being really great at golf unless you're the type of person that like less is more with your practice schedule. For Scottie, he talked about in his press conference, my favorite thing to do in the world is practice and the pursuit of perfection.
Yeah.
And I think like everything that he has set up is set up for sustained success with his current formula. Now, the issue with pro golf is like the formula sometimes changes, and we see this happen all the time.
Yeah. Look, I would add Rolex to that. Those are the three that I know about that he's keenly involved in. It's really wonderful. There was a great quote from Ted Scott, his caddy, after the round when somebody asked him about Scottie and his personality. It was brilliant. But it boils down to the fact that there's only three things he's interested in his life that he fills his time with. It's his faith and his family and golf. And if you don't fall into those three buckets, you're probably not going to get much from him. But that's the way he's built his life, and that's how he wants to live his life. And he's a pure out-and-out competitor. He's a gamer. He just wants to get out there. I've had lots of conversations with Colt Knost about this because Colt has spent a ton of time with him when Scottie was a junior out at Royal Oaks with Randy. And Colt always tells me, like, this guy he just wants to compete at everything. You're on the chipping green. Okay, who's closest to the hole? Who's gonna hole out more times? They go out into the course. They're playing for a little something. He really enjoys that competitive aspect. And, his focus is on winning every tournament he plays in, winning as often as what he can, winning as many majors as what he can. There's just no other fluff. There's no real distractions. He limits the distractions. And when you think about it, it's a pretty cool, simple way to live. And even afterwards on Sunday, when we're watching him once he makes the final putt and he has that emotional reaction, but the way that he and his family react to each other and embrace each other and laugh with each other, it's so wholesome, it's so natural. You can see what a tight-knit group they are and how much they just flat out enjoy spending time with each other. The scenes between him and his wife and their son, it just is amazing, and it's so much fun to see. It's wholesome. I think wholesome is the right word for it. And when you have a guy that is not just supremely talented, but he has that kind of perspective on life, and he's not getting pulled off the tracks, so to speak. Oh, that's a wicked combination to throw together. Wicked combination.
It's funny. I think about my business. I started in 2015.
You have a business?
I had a business 2015. That's when we started. End of 2015.
I got it. Look, yeah, I'm supporting you.
That's right. And when I was really small, I had, you had no access. So like a lot of like things that I could do were like college and amateur golf centric, web.com tour at the time. Now it's obviously the Korn Ferry, but those were the things I could go and do. And at the time, Scottie was in college. And, you hang around college tournaments as a media member, you inevitably end up running into agents, different scouts, like people, like equipment reps that are scouting players. And I remember like Scottie, to me, like Scottie was an interesting one because everybody liked to talk about, like at that time, it was like Wyndham Clark, there was, you had Norman Zhang was a newcomer then. You had some guys from Illinois. You had Oklahoma State, but like Scottie was always a topic because he was like inconsistent, and he had the back issues. But like the thing I always thought about with Scottie was when it was a big event, the biggest events, he was always there. He won the Big 12s as a freshman. He was freshman of the year, obviously. But then you think about like the U.S. Open at Oakmont. He was first round leader. He always played well at NCAAs. He won a U.S. Junior. Like maybe he wasn't the most consistent, but to me, what was interesting was when the level rose up. When you got up to the top level, he was always there. And I think there's also something to that is like there are certain players who have great records, but then there are certain players that the more challenging the question gets, the more challenging the test gets, the more their skills are showcased. And I think that's the thing with Scottie Scheffler. People dogged on his CJ Cup win. I thought that might go down to me as one of the most impressive wins in his career because he completely demolished a field of tour pros on a golf course that is very difficult to separate on. And I think like if you were going to complain about Quail, is like it was hard, and this is a soft golf course, but it made it very difficult for the field to separate the way it was set up and the golf course. But here Scottie is separating on a golf course that outside of Scottie was very bunched together.
Yeah. When you say people were dogging on his CJ Cup win, you throw yourself and Brendan into that, right?
I did not dog on it. I said it was one of the most impressive wins of the year.
Okay, just keeping you honest there. But yeah, look, that's another thing. If we like to make these comparisons with Tiger, that's what he needed to do. He went to a golf course that maybe wasn't the most challenging, a field that is not like a signature event field or a major championship field, and he did exactly what he was supposed to. He just dominated. But he has this interesting thing where he doesn't really compare himself to others. The challenge for him is against himself and against the golf course. And it's just another way that he doesn't get distracted. And we talk about the family situation earlier. Even there, it's like extended family. You got Randy Smith, and you mentioned the agents. His agent is Blake Smith, which is Randy's son. It's like, it's wholesome, man. It's the right word for it. He keeps things tight. He knows who his people are, and they know exactly how to manage everything around him to allow him to do what he loves to do, which is focus on being as good as he possibly can. The amateur and junior stuff is interesting. He's spoken about that often. He had such a huge growth spurt, and as he was shooting up to 6'3" or 6'4", whatever he is now, and it can be difficult to manage your swing and your technique and your game in those years when you're 16, 17, 18. And that's another area where he and Randy have to really get a tip of the cap, because not everybody is able to make it through those kind of body changes. Justin Rose is another one who shot up in his late teenage years and was able to manage that. It's difficult to do, but that's quite an awesome job from him and Randy, making sure that they stayed on top of it and still, through those moments, allowed him to swing his swing. He owns it. I wouldn't teach it to anybody. I don't know if you've ever tried to use that footwork and hit a shot.
I'd be afraid I'd fall down.
It's hard to even stay upright, let alone make contact with the ball. This guy does it and hits it straight at his target 95% of the time. It's his swing. He owns it. And that's why the tweaks and changes that he and Randy make are so minute. It's just feels that he's had throughout his career. And they were working on some of the hip turn stuff this week in some of the post-game practice sessions, and going back to some old feels, and it helped him self-correct on Sunday. But even looking at the warm-up on Sunday, we had some range stuff because we came on the air about 50 minutes before Scottie was teeing off. He's out there in his warm-up. There's no launch monitors. There's none of that stuff. It's so much like it's in his hands. It's a feel thing. And I said this multiple times throughout the weekend. His club face awareness, his sweet spot awareness during his swing is it's at an incredibly high level. It's unmatched really right now.
I think I said this on the Shotgun Start, but to me, like, maybe the hallmark was on Saturday, playing those last few holes in those crosswinds and the distance control. And I think TrackMan's, obviously been an incredible innovation in the sport. And it is, you played with Jeff, you've been captains with him on the international team, but I'll never forget what he said. He said, before TrackMan, everybody walked around the range and said, I think I figured it out. And that was like kind of the mantra on the range. After TrackMan, everybody had figured it out because the system told them. But when you're talking about like playing in crosswinds,
yeah,
that judging of exactly where the wind's coming from, the combination of your strike, your shape, your trajectory, all of that, like to hit when you've got a 15 mile an hour crosswind coming from a certain direction, like they were dealing with on Saturday, to hit shot after shot perfectly pin high. That is someone who has mastered feel. That is not a TrackMan golfer.
Yeah.
That is someone who has the full arsenal of, like, he can feel the shot, see the shot, and hit the shot.
Yeah, exactly right. I think it's an underrated part of Quail Hollow, quite honestly, from a test standpoint, was the amount of crosswinds that these guys had to deal with that prevailing wind this time of the year coming out of the southwest, really from 11 onward. Every hole, it's pretty much blowing across for the most part. And yeah, you're exactly right. The feel and understanding of how to control your trajectory, your spin, and your shape to be able to match all of that with the distance. And you throw in the elevation changes on some of those holes as well. You're up the hill on 13, the par 3, and then you go down again. and you're going up on 15, down on 16. To be able to match all of those things and still have such precise distance control is it's a gift. And you compare that to it. Let me qualify myself there. Is a lot of hard work that goes into accompanying the gift. But the feel aspect of talking about how he knows the sort of energy that he's putting into the golf ball, trajectory, spin, shape-wise, it's fantastic. And you compare that to Bryson, who, once again, is up there with a chance to win a major championship, which is a heck of a testament to how good he is. That's the part that he struggles with. He's talking about his equipment right now and how he's going to be able to dial that in to get better at it. But when you compare Scheffler and Bryson and how good Scottie is at controlling distance and shape and trajectory and spin, and then that being Bryson's downfall, for me, that's the separator between the two guys right now.
Yeah, I agree, and I think if you think about other players, most of them fall in between that continuum of Scottie and Bryson, right? Where there's a little bit of everything involved. I think Bryson. If you think back to Pinehurst, it was never really blustery out there.
No,
that was almost like a dome-like week. But as you said, this has been an extraordinary run of major championship golf outside of the Open, which I do not think is a venue or a championship because of what we just alluded to that really fits his game. I just, I wonder, I was thinking about they talk about how he putts. You guys talked about how he measures his putt. Is there a way, and I think YouTube has actually helped him a lot with this, where he's done some crazy challenges, the one club challenge with Sergio, where it's bringing more shot making, more feel into it. But to me, that's where he's got to just kind of let go a little bit of the numbers. He has such a vast understanding of what a ball's going to do when, water's on it, when this is on it. Just go out and wind shots are such feel shots. It's so hard to put quantifiable numbers in it because inevitably the wind's going to change.
Yeah. And he had a great interview with Amanda post-round, and kudos to him and John Rahm, for that matter, for after, in a certain sense, getting their hearts ripped out, taking the time to go ahead and do that. And he mentioned, with as high as what he hits it, with as much spin as he puts on the ball, that's the part that he has to figure out. Hey, absolutely. He needs to be able to learn a shot to where he can take some spin off and bring the flight down, and maybe even have two swings. That might sound crazy, and this is I'm still baking this idea, so take it easy on my mentions, but he's got the driver swing, which is awesome. I mean, the guy is out there. He leads driving distance for the week at 331. He's hitting about 50% of the fairways. The driver swing is so dialed when you consider the ball speed of over 190. It is so hard to manage accuracy when you're at that speed. And when you add major championship pressure to that, how he keeps it on the golf course with the driver blows my mind. So he's got that swing, and him and Rory are the two greatest drivers in my mind. You can kind of throw Scottie in there, but it's different because his is more a combo of better than average speed but more accuracy. The other two are more impressive because they have so much more power. But he's may have to build a second swing, an iron swing, a control swing. And if he does that, Bryson, with as sharp as what the rest of his game is, He was 31st around the green. He was 22nd in putting. If he finds a way to control those irons, we're going to have some unbelievable showdowns between the best players in the world. And you mentioned major championships and what a great run we're on. Just thinking from the Masters in 24, you got Scottie winning, you got Xander winning the PGA, you got Bryson winning that US Open at Pinehurst, and you got Xander again at the Open, you got Rory at the Masters, now you got Scottie again at the PGA. I mean, we're in a really cool period of time here where there's 5 or 6 guys that are quite evenly matched, and they all have the ability to beat each other on a given day. And that makes it a lot of fun for us to watch. I mean, back in my day, it was one dude pretty much dominating. Whereas now, any one of these 6 or 7 guys, you throw Rahm in there, and you probably can throw Morikawa, and then you've got some up-and-coming guys, the Obergs of the world. We're in a cool period right now, Andy.
Yeah, this was a question I wanted to ask you. Illuminating this run. On the shotgun start on Thursday, and I feel like this is what majors are starting to become. Is I said, listen, the leader's at -2 and it's Scottie Scheffler. You feel almost as if you can cross off and I thought this kind of while Sunday was going on is nobody wanted to take the ball and run on Sunday. Nobody was taking the ball and saying, I'm running at Scottie.
I felt like Rahm did for a little while.
Until to me, the only people that were going to make the run were Rahm or Bryson.
Yeah,
when you looked at the board.
I agree with that.
And you saw Davis Riley chipped in. He hooped that one. And it's he inched close, and then it was immediately sent back, right? And to me, we've gotten to this period of golf where it's, when the tests get elevated, I'm not talking week in, week out tour, but when you get to these majors where there's history and a real tough test of golf, it feels like there's only not to steal Brooks Koepka's line, you're only playing against 8 guys, and it almost feels like you could reduce to who's leading the actual tournament is one of those 8 guys, whoever's highest up on the leaderboard of those 8 guys. I'm curious, what do you think is the reason we are getting this run? And do you think we're going to get is the era of a obscure winner kind of gone?
Oh, what is the reason we're getting this run? We have a bunch or a bunch. It's less than 10, but it's more than normal of quite evenly matched players. And I don't mean that in a diminishing way at all, because they're incredibly good. Whereas, for so long, we had this situation where Tiger proved that he could win major championships with his A game, B game, C game, and he would just find a way to beat you one way or another. Sometimes it was by 10 and 12, and sometimes when he didn't quite have it, he would beat you in a playoff, or he would win by 1. I wonder if the technology and the equipment isn't sort of jamming stuff together a little bit more. If we had to roll the equipment back some, we'd probably have 1 or 2 or 3 separate a little bit more. So maybe I'd put some of that down to how good the equipment has gotten over the last period of time. Do I think we could still get a surprise? It depends what you think a surprise is. Is Oberg winning the US Open at Oakmont a surprise? Probably not. Is one of the Højgaard brothers winning at Oakmont a surprise?
See, that's bordering. It also depends. Like, I think it's important to look at like what do they do the rest of their career, because like surprises could be the launching point of said greatness, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think that's. I'm wondering if we're gonna get a Ben Curtis, a Sean McKeel, someone that comes completely out of the blue.
You're going to throw my name
Rich
in there?
Beam.
Are you
No,
throw
you're
my
not
name
in
in
there.
there or no?
No. I like you were a top 20 player in the world when you won.
Yeah.
So
It's probably becoming more unlikely. It's probably becoming a bit more unlikely, Andy. I would go as far to say that. Just because there's more of these superstars, and to be able to get through all of them, the more there are, the more unlikely it is that all of them play badly at a major. Well, one of those 10 guys the names we've thrown out there, not all 10 are going to play badly. So you take the PGA Championship, for example, because we're talking about that and it's so fresh in our minds. Were there surprises? For sure. JT was one of the favorites going and he missed the cut. Oberg was somebody we thought could play well at this golf course. He missed the cut. Brooks is a guy that's had a ton of success at majors and at the PGA Championship. He missed the cut. But you still end up with Scheffler, Rahm, and I throw McIlroy in that too. He finished wherever he finished, but never challenged at all during the week. But you've got Scheffler, Rahm, and DeChambeau. There they are. Like all 10 of those guys are not going to struggle at the same event. And so because of that, it becomes a bit more unlikely we see some sort of surprise.
I think that's probably it, right? When there's 3 guys or 4 guys, there's a chance that all of them play poorly, and you have like this outlier winner. I think maybe the other aspect of it that has gotten more challenging is just the winning a majors. I feel like are rising in significance, but then also it's what goes. I think this, and I don't. I'm not trying to diminish it, but like I think social media has made winning a major more difficult because all these guys, they get done with their round and they're looking at their phone and they're maybe turning on the TV and watching live from, and like that aspect of winning a major is also daunting. Is like it's ever present. These guys carry their phone around. They're on their phone all the time. You go to a range at a event. It's amazing how often these guys are on their phone. They're on their phone all the time, and it's ever present. There is no escaping when you're in the mix of a major, like the thought of winning a major, which makes winning a major more difficult.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think back to the Masters in 2008, there was, I'm not even sure if Twitter was around yet or it was about to start shortly after that. But I had zero social media, and my family knew the rules that week at the house were no Golf Channel on the TV and no newspapers in the house. And so I went the whole week completely oblivious to what anybody was saying, what anybody was writing. And, going back to when we were talking about Scottie earlier, there were just so few distractions. I was able to just get lost in my world for the week. Whereas, you bring up a great point now. The conversation is so broad and there's so many different voices included in that. You got to be seriously disciplined as an athlete to decide how much of that you want to be involved in, if at all, how much you're going to pay attention to. Everybody's a little different as to how it affects them. Some people may even think they don't get affected, but maybe they do as well. So that's another little dance that each athlete has to do to try and figure that part out.
I might be wrong, but I believe if I think back to the Harding Park PGA, Scottie might not have even had an Instagram then. Like he might not have even had social media where like, and if you think about like the idea, if he didn't have it then, he's not the one that's managing day to day on the Instagram. He's not
That's
on
exactly what I was going to say. He probably doesn't even know he has one now.
I know that, like one of the things that Rory's done in recent majors is he like really builds a bubble, and it's like no phone, doesn't read anything week of, like keeps it very like, tries to build that bubble that you're talking about where like similar to your '08 Masters.
He
I think
built a bubble this week. He didn't even talk to the media.
Well, I was wondering as I was thinking about like how strange it was, like that week. And one of the things I wanted to ask you about this. Do you think it could be feasibly that like him and Rotella have worked? Like he talks so much at the Masters about chasing a feeling on the golf course, and I think like a great question for him is what is that feeling? I wanted to ask it, but at the media center, but I didn't get the chance to. But he's talked about chasing that feeling, and I'm, for a couple of years now after bad rounds, he has not talked to the media at majors. One thing I'm wondering is this mental work of like, we aren't going to replay the bad pictures. We aren't going to talk about the negatives because we are trying to just think of the good things that can happen. And that is this is not me trying to play I think like not doing any media, especially even after the last round was, I think that's like, just get up there and say like, this week didn't go as well as it should have, as I wish it would have. But like, could that be part of it where he doesn't want to replay the negative images, and that's kind of part of his major strategy?
Yeah. The real answer is I don't know. I haven't spoken to him about that in particular. I spent some time with him on Tuesday, and let's be accurate. He spent time with the media on Tuesday pre-tournament and did his usual press conference and was gave his time and answered all the questions that were posed to him. I don't know why he's gone ahead with that strategy at times. I'd be interested to hear what he has to say. I do think that if I was advising these players, whether it be him or Morikawa has had the same issues, Shane Lowry has made some comments about it in the past. I think it comes with the territory. It comes with the territory of being elite. When you're elite, when you are successful, people want to hear from you. And you can't always only want to be a part of that when things are going your way. At times you're just going to have to take it on the chin, just like you do on the golf course. And when you play badly or when you get a few awkward breaks and you don't shoot the score you want to shoot, you take it on the chin. You got to do the same with the media, I believe. And I'm not asking you to go up there for 20 minutes. I'm not even asking you to go up there for 10 minutes, but stick your head in, answer one or two questions, say that you're bitterly disappointed, felt good about your game, you were looking forward to the week, and going to have to figure things out as to why it went wrong and how you're going to adjust for the next round or the next tournament. And then that's it. That's all you need. So at some point, I'd like to ask him and get his opinion on that. And at that point, I'll have a more well-rounded perspective as to, why he's gone about it this way at certain points.
Yeah. It's interesting because I think there was a shift. It was a shift that really happened after the first merger, to me, is where the media strategy kind of flipped with him, where he's given, where like I think he gave so much time, answered so many questions, and then he maybe it was a moment of like, why am I speaking for everybody else, and why don't I start doing what's best for me? Is probably, if I had to guess, that would be what I would, if I was speculating.
I think the concern with all of these guys, in my mind, the concern is in the heat of the moment, just not saying something that you could later get burned on.
Yes.
And I totally understand that. But that's also another way to where if you build relationships with everybody, it's probably less likely that you're going to get burned. But like I touched on earlier, with what's that famous old quote? With great success comes great responsibility, and that's the position these guys find themselves in. People love them. People are interested in them, and people want, because of that, more access to them and to know what happened, just a little insight into what happened, and are disappointed when they don't get that.
Well, I mean, Scottie said he wanted a ball that went straighter. And
Scottie or Bryson?
Bryson said he wanted a ball that went straighter, and you jumped all over and said, "Me too."
No, but I mean, I wasn't kidding. That's for real, right?
I think we all want one,
don't you? Absolutely. I actually don't just want one that goes straighter. I want one that goes 350 every time I pull out the driver as well. That's what I'm looking for.
There's a Instagram account, Country Club Collection, who posted some Scottie Scheffler swings, like a bunch of swings from 2017 at Quail Hollow. It was mesmerizing to watch. I couldn't believe it was from the 2017 PGA. Like, the move is the same, but just the speed difference is incredible. And I think like that's like I was thinking, it got me thinking about Bryson a little bit, and he added speed from such a good place, because when he was young, the thing you could say about him was like, man, this guy just hits it rock solid every single time. Like, there was he hit that thing square in the center of the club face so often before he did the speed transformation. But I was watching those swings, and it was incredible to see the swing fundamentally looks so similar, but it's just the swings from 2017 look like they're in slow motion. It's crazy.
Yeah. I think a lot of that came from the work and the time that he spent with Chris Como when they were together, which was through that first U.S. Open win at Wingfoot.
The COVID it was in Chris Como's house that they were doing that. I remember those videos. It was amazing.
That's exactly right. And Chris, in my mind, is he's the smartest guy out there when it comes to what's actually happening with the body and the golf swing. And it was the perfect instructor for Bryson at the time to be able to get the answers that he was looking for as to how he could put on all of this speed but not completely lose his game and lose that natural, beautiful swing that he's always had. And it was really cool. I mean, a lot of guys, when you look back in history, have lost their games when they try and build extra distance. And even McIlroy commented after that, after Bryson picked up all that speed, he sort of went chasing for it, and for a little period in time started hitting the ball worse, and then had to readjust how he was going about it. But yeah, what Bryson and Como did through that COVID period is incredible. I remember the first time I saw it in person, I knew they were doing all the work. I'm pretty close with Chris. And, during that COVID time, there were so many weird restrictions, but once we got going again, the first tournament that I was on site when he was really starting to crank it was at the Travelers. And, when I was standing side on, so we call that caddy view or face on, right? I had to retrain my eyes to follow the ball. I've played golf since I was 5 years old and played with some of the best players that have ever walked on the planet. And normally your eyes and your head just have like a rhythm with which they follow the ball and then see the flight. But for the first few holes that I was watching Bryson, my eyes were always behind, and then I'd have to look out into the sky and try and find the ball again. I mean, this thing was just coming out so much faster than anything I'd ever seen before. And in these practice rounds, he was getting over 200 miles an hour of ball speed. And it was just nuts. There's a lot of talent, very, very, very clearly. But the work ethic that he put in and the training and you mentioned the word maniacal earlier. The veracity with which he chased the swing speed and ball speed and power is awesome. I mean, he invested a ton of time, money, resources. He left no stone unturned trying to figure out how he could maximize everything out of his body.
I think that's the thing with Bryson is like, the irons are a challenge. I believe he's going to go deep down a path to figure this out. We saw him; he was struggled last year at Augusta with speed control. His speed control at Augusta this year, for the most part, until the final round, was tremendous.
Yeah.
Anecdotally, with Bryson, I remember talking with Brendan at the 2021 Ryder Cup about how I couldn't follow Bryson's shots.
Yeah.
It's like I grew up caddying. I've watched golf shots my entire life.
Yeah.
And it was the same type of thing where it just comes, it's almost unfollowable right off the face. Like you have to catch it in the air after it goes. Yeah. I wanted to talk a little bit about Jon Rahm before we wrap this up. To me, he's been a little grumpy the last year and a half. And this week, he seemed just to be the happiest go lucky guy once he got into contention. I don't know if I've ever seen a player light up as much about getting to go through his shots as he did when he got to go through his shots with Amanda on Saturday. It was nice having him back in the mix. Like you just like forget how much of a force of nature he is when he is in contention. Like there's like a physicality with him in the way he plays the game that I think is distinct amongst the elite players. Like, other players might hit it harder, but there's just something about his presence that brings like a real like gravity to the tournament.
Yeah. 100% agree with that. I mean, he's a big man. He's a powerful guy. He absolutely has the presence that you speak of. The swing adds to that because it's this half a backswing, and he's able to generate so much force and power through impact. He, is a great loud sound to the strike when he hits it. And, it's almost like when you're a kid and you're watching cartoons or reading books about like giants. He's got like that sort of feel when he's walking around. It's almost like his steps are louder than other people's steps because of the way he's like, making you feel him. And I totally agree with you. I actually even said that on the broadcast on Sunday when he was making this run and he got up there and to the top of the leaderboard with those great birdies around the stretch. And then he hit the brilliant putt on 13 that just still can't believe that ball didn't drop down. I mean, it's breaking perfectly with the slope of the green. And you're thinking at that point, with that little speed, anything that touches the cup is just going to, gravity's helping it with the slope of the green to just fall down in there. And somehow it stayed out. And then he hits a marvelous fairway wood on the next, turning it around the trees, and gets there absolutely is a bowl there for sure. So it's
catch
not
basin.
It's not okay. It's not an unlucky break because it landed on the side, but I promise you that ball is 6 inches from being possibly on the green and in a really cool spot. He said that he thought it was going to go over, but when I watched it a few times, it seemed to be landing soft enough to where it may still have caught a piece of the green.
And it could have kind of filtered. It
Yeah.
rode there's a slope in that green that it could have rode.
Yes. But even after that funny little bounce there, he's walking off the tee and he was in a sense laughing about it. Like he was really enjoying how he pulled the shot off and, over 310 yards, it's 6 inches away from being, perfect, but he gets the funny bounce and he's walking off the tee, handing the club back to his caddy, and he's laughing about that. And I actually commented, how much fun is Jon Rahm having right now? And I agree with you. It was great to have him back in the hunt. He's proven to us many times that he has everything that it takes to be able to get it done on these kinds of stages. And I think this gave him just enough of a taste to where he knows he's back on track. He spoke all week about how last year he was fighting his swing a little bit, and that's why he feels like he played poorly in the majors.
Never finished outside the top 10, though, on LIV.
That's correct. But I feel like now he has made the adjustment he needs to make, and he got that little taste, and he's going to be in the mix again at Oakmont, is what I think.
I think it's impossible for me. One of the things that I like about covering something on site versus this week I was home is when you're, I think I would have been with Scottie or Rahm. Those would have been one of the two players I would have been with. And I was trying to figure this out through the TV. But, golf, when you get into a situation that you're unfamiliar or is a little uncomfortable, and obviously Jon Rahm's won major championships before, but he has not been in the mix at one in a couple years. Your tendency is to speed up a little. And I just wonder, through the telecast, it felt like he was a little bit faster around the greens on those shots. But it's impossible for me to know because I'm not there. But it just felt like it felt like the quintessential. You get in the mix, and the reason the shots that he didn't make those birdies on 14, really, like he said after the round, that's the best place you could be around the green, was where I was. And then 15, where Scottie had basically the same shot and hit it to, I think he was pushing a little. I think Rahm knew he needed to get to 11, and he really wanted to make that eagle. But you make those types of decisions. You get impatient and you try and force things when you haven't been in a situation in a while. And I think it's a quintessential Rahm got in the mix, and then the next time we see him in the mix, whether it's at Oakmont or potentially Portrush, both, every venue sets up well for him, but I think those are two great venues for him. I think it's going to go a lot different. And I would not I kind of have gotten on, I think Jon Rahm's going to win a major this year because of this.
Yeah, look, that wouldn't surprise me one bit. I think his game fits anywhere. And because the way he can flight the ball up and down, particularly at links golf courses, that suits that really well if conditions get a little gnarly at the Open. I did not get the feeling that he was rushing. To me, the putter just let him down when he needed it most. He made a brilliant putt on 11.
13. Yeah, 11 too.
To make that birdie. But then if we run through it from there, 12, he's got a shortish putt. It's a difficult putt because it's straight down the hill and it's breaking a lot from the right. But what was it, 10 or 12 feet? So tough putt, but he doesn't make that one at 12. And, momentum is such a huge thing in sport. And all of a sudden, and Nance brought up a brilliant point, I thought, in the moment in the telecast, because 12 green and 10 green basically sit right next to each other. And right before Rahm putted on 12, Scottie made that 10-footer for birdie, and you could absolutely hear it.
Yeah, very loud. Right before, too.
And so he misses the one at 12, and it's like, okay, almost there's like this little shift. And then he hits the great putt at 13, but it doesn't go in. And it's like, there's another little shift. And then on 14, he hits the great tee shot. He hits an okay bunker shot, but what is he, like 7 feet? And it really kind of a poor putt, has no chance of going in. So now it's 12, 13, 14. It's 3 in a row that he hasn't converted one of those. And then 15, he hits a wonderful drive, a brilliant 4-iron off of a downhill lie, playing 8 yards up the hill. I mean, like super, super, super difficult. He gets the hard part right. He gets it right on line, but because it's coming in a little flatter, it skips through the back of the green. And he's got this interesting choice of chipping or putting. He decided to go with the putter. I'm perfectly okay with that. But the touch wasn't on point like it was for Scottie when he had the same shot moments after that. And then he misses another putt there. So 12, 13, 14, 15, the putter just let him down. And then he gets to 16. He understands that Scottie has made the birdie at 10. Scottie's made the birdie at 14. He now knows in all likelihood this guy's got things going. He's probably going to birdie 15. And now he realizes he needs to press and then makes a poor swing there on 16. So for me, I'm not saying the putts were easy by any means. But on that stretch of holes, when he needed it most, he just couldn't quite find a way to convert those makeable opportunities from 12 to 15.
I agree. It's like to get so little out of how good the long shots were.
Yeah.
And I think like if that putt goes in on 13, we could be talking about Jon Rahm winning this tournament.
Yep.
Which is like a lot, it made Jon Rahm made Sunday compelling watch. It for a while was like, I don't know if this is going to be like, I was watching it. I had kind of I was on dad duty and I was watching it, trying to like have, and I was like, I don't know if this is going to like, what's if this, I'm just going to look back and be like, you know what? I didn't need to watch any of this today. But Jon Rahm, he was, that's, the other thing, jokingly, he didn't have to protect the FedEx Cup points too. So it let him really go after the green mile. And we saw him crash and burn because of it.
You're unplayable. You're completely unplayable.
If you had to pick just a name of a player that we saw play this week that might, that was, hey, we haven't seen this guy in the mix here that we might see again. Is there anybody that jumped out?
Yeah, I got to give a little love to Niemann.
Top 10 on the board.
I mean, I've ridden him pretty hard for his major championship record. It's because I have a lot of respect for how good he is. He's young, he's good, he's won at every level. But if you want to be really taken seriously as one of the best players in the world, the major championships is where you need to bring your stuff. And after opening round 74, I was looking through things and going like, man, here we go again with this guy. Is he going to be able to find a way to get his way back into it? And the way he played the last 3 rounds, you got to tip your cap. He shoots 67 in round 2 to make sure that he makes the cut. I mean, he's in jeopardy of missing the cut after a 3-over first round. He follows that up with even par on the 3rd round and then a 68 on Sunday to have his first top 10 in the major. So give him a nod for that one. I know he's going to take a ton of confidence out of it. And he's one of those guys that I throw in the the Oberg category of maybe not quite the level of those top 7, 8 names that we throw out there, but somebody in the level right underneath that wouldn't surprise me if they figure it out and win a major here soon.
I feel obligated to point this out that Neiman's only 1 year older than Oberg. He's been around pro golf forever.
Yes,
that's the difference between turning pro at 18 and 23.
You got to remember, Ernie Els gave me this lesson when I was a young pro, and I can be a little impatient, believe it or not. And I was one of the best amateurs in the world. We had myself, Adam Scott, Sergio, Luke Donald, Matt Kuchar. There was quite a big bunch. Paul Casey. There's a whole host of names. Jeff Ogilvy. A whole bunch of us that were good, and I was absolutely in that area, in that zone of one of the best amateurs in the world. And I turned professional, and I had to what I felt was a really slow start. Didn't get through Q school immediately. I had to go play on the Challenge Tour in Europe, and I eventually finished 10th in my first year to then get onto the main European Tour in 2001. And it bothered me because a number of these other guys, Sergio, Adam, they made a much quicker transition into the pro game and immediately made their presence felt. And it absolutely bothered me. And I was trying to figure out, why aren't I doing that? And one day, Ernie and I were together here in Orlando, and he sat me down and he said, listen, you're 21 years old. You hope to be able to play this game competitively at least until you're 40, hopefully longer than that. You need to run your own race. Don't be concerned with what these other guys are doing. Just run your own race. It might take you 5 years to get to that level. It might take you 10 years to get to that level. Look how late Ben Hogan started winning majors. Look how late Phil Mickelson started winning majors. It doesn't come quick to everybody. So just focus on yourself and run your own race. And, that's what I would say to a guy like Neiman, and why I would disagree with what you said. Taking a snapshot.
I was saying he's only a year older than Ludwig. That's a good thing. He's only 1 year older than Ludwig.
There's tons of time there for these guys. Tons of time.
That's great advice. Run your own race. All right. Last thing before we get you out of here. Who are your top five favorites off the top of your head for Oakmont? And maybe just a quick thought on what Oakmont's going to present.
I think it's fairly obvious. I don't think you really have to go out on a limb with the top 5. We've been talking about them for this whole podcast. It's Rory, it's Scottie, it's Bryson, it's Rahm. That 5th spot is up for grabs. You could throw JT in there. It's going to be a great test. It kicked my butt when I played the US Open there. I missed the cut. Course was, a little different. It's changed through the redos and renovations just a little bit. But you're going to have power for sure. But you're going to have a ton of control. And then that's half of the test, because then you're going to get to these greens that are wonderful. They're super interesting, and they are going to be, if it all goes according to plan and the weather cooperates, mega fast.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a very well-rounded test for these players, and I'm looking forward to it. I don't have to work it either, so I'm going to be able to sort of sit back and really be entertained by the golfers and by our friends at NBC, and see it play out from that standpoint, which I'm also looking forward to.
That's great. I can't wait for it. And it's, the next two with Portrush and this one, those are, I think, two of the best venues we have in the sport. So it's going to be a fun end to this major season. That's already, off to a cracking start,
isn't it?
Say.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. We've got a lot of good golf to look forward to for the remainder of this year.
All right. We will see you on CBS coming up. Big thanks for joining. Looking forward to talking Oakmont and Portrush with you later this year.
Yeah, no problem. We'll be at Colonial this weekend. Looking forward to it.
All right. Big thanks to Trevor, as always, for joining. And big thanks to PJ Clark for editing and producing this podcast just one day after his birthday. He's putting on a Herculean effort. The Champions Tour major spilled into his birthday. He had an early morning on his birthday to cover the Champions Tour, and day after he's producing this podcast. So big thanks to PJ. We'll be back next week. Soon we will start rolling out Oakmont content, Oakmont podcast. But next week we will have a different show, a little less pro golf centric. Thanks, and we'll be back next week.